Welcome to Season 2 of the Erotic Realm podcast, where we explore the world of eroticism, one erotic realm at a time. I'm Em, a sexologist and kinkster. The mission of the Erotic Realm is to humanize desire in all of its forms, including darker desires. Each episode, we dive deep into the psychology of desire with a sexpert, everyday kinkster, or a kink expert. This is an independent podcast. To support it, please consider becoming a paid subscriber at psychologyofdesire.com, where you'll also find deep dives into desire and surveys that you can participate in. You can also sign up there to get the podcast delivered directly to your inbox when it's released. And now for today's episode. Before we get started, I have something very excited to announce. The podcast has been nominated for the Australian Adult Industry Awards in the category of Best Podcast. So if you'd love to vote for the Erotic Realm to win this category, it would be amazing to have your support. I'll put a link to the voting website in the show notes, and I'd really appreciate it if you could give it a click and a vote, and who knows, maybe it will win Best Podcast. Thank you so much for listening and for your support. If you'd like to support the podcast, please consider checking out the brands that support the Erotic Realm. There's FermTech, whose tech ring offers fascinating insights into sexual health by tracking erection quality and nocturnal function. Splash Blanket, who create luxurious waterproof blankets designed for comfort, intimacy, and real-life messes. ProDX Health, who offer discreet, at-home STI testing. While Karoo and Lovents make premium pleasure technology, from couple toys to long-distance interactive devices. Then there's Lioness, who are doing something truly unique in sex tech, using biofeedback and orgasm data to help people better understand their arousal. I'm also partnering with Flow and Desire, science-backed libido support supplements designed to support sexual vitality and well-being. These are brands that I find genuinely interesting, science-backed, and I've used them myself, so they come with my recommendation. You can find the links to all of them in the episode description. If you try them, use the links below. It supports the show at no extra cost to you. And now, back to today's conversation. The following conversation explores one of the deepest cultural myths surrounding women and sexuality, the idea that desire fades with age. Today, my guest is Brookiana, a writer, Noetisexual woman, and late-life erotic explorer whose journey challenges everything we're taught about aging, attraction, and feminine desirability. Together we explore erotic reawakening after long periods of abstinence, the psychology of attraction from younger men, and how intelligence, depth, and emotional connection can become profoundly erotic. We also dive into ageism, sexuality, writing erotica later in life, and the internal transformation that occurs when a woman stops seeing herself through the lens of decline. Drawing on research exploring sexuality in later life, this conversation asks, what if women's desire doesn't disappear with age, but finally becomes fully their own? Enjoy. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Erotic Realm podcast. Today, I'm very delighted to be exploring the erotic realm of Brookiana. Welcome, Brookiana.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here with you.
Very happy to have you here. So we normally start the podcast by finding out a little bit about your everyday life outside of sexuality and kink. What do you enjoy doing with your time when you're not exploring your eroticism?
Well, I'm a business owner of many years. I have a marketing agency, mostly dealing with digital marketing activities on behalf of my clients who are small business owners. I have another business in which I am a jewelry designer using a European technique called bead embroidery. And as I'm sure we'll discuss, I very much enjoy writing. And I do that both for my clients and for myself.
Wonderful. So how do you Let's jump into your eroticism now. How do you currently describe your erotic identity, both in terms of your sexuality and your kink identity?
I'm a heterosexual woman. I define myself as a switch.
Okay, and I also noticed that you describe yourself as I don't know how to pronounce it actually. I'm not very familiar with this term. A noetisexual, is that how you pronounce it?
That's a new one for me as well. And I was looking up some terminology and I found this suited me very nicely. And it's a term that conveys that what I find appealing in a potential partner is largely the landscape of his brain and what comes out of it. So it could be creativity, intellect, priorities, morals, values, communication style. A lot of that is really what is most appealing to me, of course, with physical appearance as well. But I'm very drawn to the personality of an individual more than just physical attraction.
So it's similar to sapiosexual, is that right?
That's exactly right, yes.
And for those who may not have heard the term and that are listening, it's spelled Noeti sexual, just in case you want to look it up. Okay. So in terms of your kinky life, what would you say are your top 3 kinks currently?
This is a hard thing for me to answer because I've come to find that so much is just normal for me. So I'm not sure where the distinction between conventional and kink may lie. But I'll say I very much like watching a man masturbate. I'm extraordinarily fond of kissing, as I think it conveys so many different kinds of emotion or eroticism. And I like to have my ass adored.
So you mentioned the second one, kissing, why you like it, but the other two you didn't go really deep into what you like about them. So I'm curious, the first one, what do you like about watching men masturbate?
For me, it's an interesting event. I mean, obviously, it's very sexual and exciting just for the pure activity of it. But when I think stereotypically of a man's masculinity, part of what goes into that conventional definition is strength in behavior, of conviction. And I find when a man masturbates, he's in a very vulnerable state. And I find the distinction between those two very endearing. And I think of it as having been let into a very private and trusted space with a partner.
And what about the third kink that you mentioned, having your ass adored? What does that involve? And why do you enjoy it?
That's a relatively new playground for me.
Fun.
And I developed it when I had a lover about a year ago who was very physical, very much a dominant man, and wanted the lights on. And I have come out of an extended period of abstinence, and I was not entirely comfortable with my body and some of the things he wanted to see while we were engaged in sex. And at one point, when I expressed discomfort, he dragged me out of bed. He took me into the bathroom. He turned on the lights and he said, "Look at you. I want all of that. I want all of that." And that conveyed to me a completely different way of me looking at my own body. And I am not by any means a svelte woman. And the fact that he liked to play with my behind, which is the largest single component my body has, I found very appealing, and I found it very pleasurable. And it was not an area on my body that had ever gotten much attention at all. And so partially it was the novelty of it. It was the fact that it was an affirmation of physical beauty that I had not considered was physically attractive. And the fact that it just felt damn good was all to the good.
I love that he dominated you to being in service and of your beauty and seeing your body from a devoted lens in front of the mirror. That's so powerful and beautiful.
It was indeed. Yeah.
What a lovely man and a lovely lover to have. How lucky.
Yeah, I very much was, yes.
It also goes to show that these moments can really linger with you and change your perspective of yourself. And it sounds like that's happened for you. So, yay, that's amazing.
I agree.
Yeah. And you've also written a book about your sexuality and eroticism. Can you tell us more about this book?
Yes. The manuscript has, in fact, just been sent to its publisher.
Oh.
It's called Sex, Sensuality, and the Senior Woman. And it's really a book about transformation and a system that anyone can employ for any desired life change. And I've written it largely for women of middle and senior years. And I used my own life over the last 2.5 years as an example of how this system can work. And my life has changed very significantly in the last several years since I divorced my husband. We had been together for 25 years. And during that time, we had engaged in virtually no sexual, no intimate behaviors. And it was, for me, a very demeaning experience. It was a loss of a tremendous component of who I always thought I was. And it really made me feel less than. And immediately after our divorce, despite the fact that he was planning to relocate to be near his son and daughter-in-law, he fell down a flight of stairs in our home, did not respond well to surgery, and spent the next 2 years dying a little bit every day.
Oh, no.
And it was a terrible, obviously the worst possible experience for him. But it was very difficult for me to witness, and I cared for him to the degree that I could. But this was not at all what I expected the initial part of my newly single life to be. And as a business owner, no longer having my husband's contribution to our household, this meant that I was working harder to bring in more money. I was also visiting him several times a week in the nursing home. I stopped socializing with friends, and I was a pretty depressed and tired character for quite a while. And I realized at one point, this is not the way I wanted the rest of my life to be. I had had distinct plans, and the reason for the divorce was to what I considered to be an improvement in the quality of my life. So I chose to make changes. I told him I could no longer visit him as frequently as I did. I enrolled in a local university and started taking classes. I joined a weekly discussion group. I committed to seeing at least one of my friends every week. And I started looking around to date and find a romantic partner. And so these were all the changes I made. And what came out of that is I am now in the second year of what I consider the best decade of my life so far. And I'm really proud of myself. And I feel that women in particular, much younger than I'm 73, but women who are much younger are often constrained by societal norms that tell them what their role in life is now to be. If they've left the workforce, if they are divorced, if they are a grandparent. And I have no objection to any of these roles anyone may want. But if it's not what someone wants, if they feel they've just been directed along a path that is what is conventionally available, they may want to stop and consider that there are other things in life they have yet to achieve and that they would like to achieve. And so I put together a series of steps, which I undertook, which require no special tools or capabilities or financial resources to make life a little bit better and happier, and perhaps to reach out and try for whatever achievement one still wants to achieve, regardless of age.
Wow.
So that's what my book's about.
How amazing. What a journey you've been on. And I think it's a real testament to your character that despite all of the challenges that you've been through, as you said, you're in the most exciting, fulfilling decade of your life in your 70s, which is just incredible. So yeah, I'm in awe of that.
Thank you. I am too, actually.
Love to hear it. I'm curious because you said that you had this long stint of abstinence in your sexless marriage, and now you're so expansive in your sexuality. What was your sexuality like before your marriage? Because kink and exploring as a woman, you know, it's hard enough now, but back then I imagine it was much harder. What was your sexuality and kinky life like before you got married?
I was a very happy single woman living in Manhattan.
Mm-hmm.
And I tended to have serial relationships of 3 years. It was never difficult to find a boyfriend, not just a lover. I was not really thinking in terms of purely sexual relationships, but I was definitely sexual. I was very comfortable with the men with whom I would establish a more comprehensive relationship. They would last for some period of time and they would end happily or otherwise, and I would move on to another. I was very comfortable with sex. I never felt put upon, insulted, degraded, or made to feel badly about anything. I was never physically harmed or threatened. I liked sex tremendously from the time I was 16. And when I married my husband, and even before, we had lived together for a few years before we married, we just did not have similar ideas about a physical component, let alone an erotic component, but any kind of sexual engagement just didn't seem to happen for us. We had very different ideas of what we thought was pleasurable. He would always claim stress or money or exhaustion or whatever it was that would get in the way of his ability to perform. And after a while, I accepted as normal a completely sexless relationship with the man I had married. As I said, it was difficult. I didn't realize how difficult it was for me emotionally. And unfortunately, the relationship itself, over the years that we were together, revealed more and more distinctions between us that made at least me realize this had not been the right partner for me. And when finally I asked for divorce, the unexpected happened thereafter, and he was dealt a terrible tragedy, and I still felt responsible. We had been together for a long time. He was certainly not a bad person by any means, just not the right partner for me. And he had done a lot, to support me, to try to help us have a good home. And so I supported him in his decline as best I could. And as I said, I was exhausted. And it was the same very lovely gentleman who you just complimented so beautifully, who introduced me to FetLife.
Ah, okay. I was wondering how you ended up in the kink world. So he really opened up your world a lot in many ways.
He was a fabulous man, and towards the beginning of our relationship, he wanted to reveal this side of himself to me. He showed me this website, which I had never heard of. I knew nothing about it. I didn't see anything in his profile or his comments or his photos that were at all objectionable to me. And I frankly was very turned on to this community, this wild, wild west adventurous place where so many people were leading with their own sexual desires to find either a partner or their tribe of belonging. And it gave me a great opportunity to start expanding more so into my own sense of sexuality. And I started posting photos, nicely edited photos, and I started writing erotica. And I'd never done any of these things before. And suddenly I'm getting all these positive comments from men half my age, if not more. And it opened up a world in which I frankly am very happy to play.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Yeah, you've described that you were happily shocked by younger men being attracted to you. What was that like when you realized that these younger men were interested in a woman of your age, and what was shocking about it?
Well, I never knew that this phenomena was normal, that there were hordes of men. The first man with whom I had sex when I came out of my sad funk was 34 years old. I was
Mm-hmm.
70. He was
Wow.
less than half my age.
Mm-hmm.
And we had met on a dating site, and it was a dating site specifically for people over the age of 50. He was 34, so clearly he was actively seeking out an older partner. And at one point, when we were out on a first date having brunch, I said to him, "What is this about for you? Is this a mother thing? What is this?" And all he did was look at me, and he smoldered. He was beautiful. He looked at me and he said, "Do you want to see me again?" And I said, "Yes, of course." And over the course of the next 2 years, I have asked every man who was at least 20 years younger than I, why are they so turned on by significantly older women? And part of my book is a list of 16 reasons I got,
Mm.
very considered, reflective, thoughtful reasons that made complete sense from men who are decades younger than the women they like to be with. And it was fascinating to me to discover that this is really conventional. It's normal. There's a real good reason for it to exist. And in fact, last weekend's New York Times featured a sizable article about this very phenomenon,
Mm.
about younger men really being interested in partnering with significantly older women.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious about this list of 16 reasons. Can you share
I
maybe
thought you
can you
would.
share maybe one or two of them? I'm so
Sure.
fascinated. Mm.
Okay, well, okay. The obvious is that older women are not going to get pregnant, but totally obvious. I'm not even going to discuss it. Um, One of the reasons is that older women know what they want. They've endured a lot of life. They've made a lot of difficult decisions. They're less likely to put up with crap, and they are not going to allow themselves to be misdirected away from what they want. And so the contention is from the man who shared this with me that an older woman will say forthrightly, this is what I like. This is the kind of sexual behavior I like. This is how I want you to touch me, to hold me, to kiss me. And that comes from decades of experience and comfort with oneself. So that's one that I got. Another reason I got is that older women are much more interesting to speak with than women of comparable age to the younger men. Age seems to add gravitas, a greater awareness of how life delivers its impact, and really because older women, and I'm sure older men as well, have learned to roll with many, many punches. And that adds a level of seriousness that provides for more interesting conversation, which the men with whom I've spoken are actively seeking as part of the physical relationship they want. So there's a couple of good reasons for you.
Thank you for sharing. It's so interesting to hear because there's still this, I guess, stigma and idea around younger men that they're just looking for physicality. And it sounds like that is definitely not the case with the gentlemen that you have been hanging out with. They really admire your experience and intelligence and ability to conversate.
Well, yes, but of course, it's a tremendous badge of honor, for a younger man to satisfy an older woman who is seasoned, experienced, has been around, has much more with which to assess the competence of a younger man. For a younger man to satisfy a woman of those years and experience, it's a feather in his cap, certainly.
Can you take us back to how you felt after your first experience with this younger gentleman? It had been many years since you had been physical with someone. What did you feel like directly afterwards?
Oh, fantastic. This particular gentleman, we stayed together for just a few weeks, and he seemed determined to provide more pleasure for me than he expected for himself. And whether for himself it was, as I said, a badge of honor, I don't know. But it was exquisite, especially the first time that we got together. He was completely in control of the scenario. He walked around my home as if it was his own. He knew when to take me into the bedroom. He knew exactly what he was doing, and he did it very well. I was thrilled. He was beautiful. He was attentive, and provided tremendous pleasure. And it was a wonderful reawakening for me, which I was very much looking forward to. And in fact, I had asked him for the sex because we had gotten together a couple of times before, and he was a real movie buff. He loved movies, and he came over one evening, and he brought a couple of films with him that we watched until late in the evening. And when I walked him to his car afterwards, I was kind of cursing under my breath. There was no sex, there was no kissing, there was nothing. And I had wanted it. And in a conversation a few days afterwards, I invited him to come over again. He asked if I wanted him to bring a couple of other films. I said no, I was thinking about sex and conversation. And I only wished that we had been on a FaceTime conversation at the time, but we were not, and he came through beautifully. So that's when I discovered that age has nothing to do with sexual desire. Nothing had dissipated. Everything was kind of stored up within me, waiting to be released and put into use again. And for me, it was a wonderful experience. And there have been many since.
Yeah, I'm so happy for you. What a reclamation. How amazing.
Thank you.
So you
I'm
mentioned,
happy to.
yeah, you mentioned aging and sexuality. So let's talk about it. Before this chapter of your life began, let's go back to a younger Brookiana. What did you believe about sexuality and aging as a younger woman?
I don't think I spent too much thinking about aging as a younger woman. I didn't think it applied to me. Even into my 40s, I had been sexually active. I wasn't aware of bodily changes or desire changes. As I said previously, I never had a bad experience. I mean, the worst I could say was occasionally I would be bored with a lover. But no one had introduced me to anything that I would consider outside the realm of the norm. The things that I have discovered since playing on the FetLife playground, all kinds of things I never heard of before, never considered before. And it's not been since this age that I'm in that I have been exposed to an enormous variety of how people define themselves, the things people prefer, whether to do to them or for them to do to their partner. I have found it remarkably refreshing and really enjoyable to be witness to.
Yeah, it is amazing to see the variety on FetLife and people owning their desires and going after exactly what they want. We love that.
Very much. Yeah, it's a wonderful environment in which people can be very forthright about who they are, whereas in mainstream social environments, they may feel they have to hide to prevent any kind of social outcast or loss of a job or family and friends. FetLife is a very welcoming for a tremendous assortment and variety of behaviors and self-definitions.
It sure is. Okay, I want to bring in a quote here that feels deeply relevant to your story, and it's from Susan Sontag, who was a 20th century American writer and critic. And she says, "The double standard of aging is that men mature and women decline." So when you hear her speak about this, do you feel like your earlier life was shaped by this belief at all, or even what you were thinking or experiencing during your marriage? Did you have...
No.
No?
No. And I'll tell you why. I grew up with a female head of household. And when I was a toddler and my sister was an infant, my father developed polio and spent the rest of his life in hospital, mostly in an iron lung. So pretty awful. And my mother had to go to work to support us. And my aunt, my mother's sister, was deserted by her husband when she was pregnant with their first and only child. And so here were my role models, my mother and my aunt, who were single mothers raising kids, going to work, providing a home life that was stable, that was healthy, that was clean. And these were my examples. So for me, being a strong, independent woman, I really didn't think of myself as likely to decline with age, because I still watch my 96-year-old mother, who lives alone in her own beautiful, luxurious, cooperative apartment, managing her finances, taking care of the cleanliness of her home. And I've been very blessed, whether it's because of the family examples I have, or the fact that whatever genetic components were given to me, I remain healthy and energetic and pretty young looking for my age as well.
Well, yay for
So
that.
I never thought of decline. I've been a business owner for over 30 years, and I'm completely responsible for my income because I don't get a paycheck every week. I get whatever revenue my clients desire to give to me in exchange for the services I provide. So strength and independence have always been an intrinsic part of who I am, and that doesn't change with age. Thank goodness.
Well, thank goodness for that. Yeah, I wanted to explore a little bit more about ageism and sexuality because there's a body of work that's growing around it. And I found a chapter on ageism that highlights how deeply society suppresses and distorts the sexuality of older people. For example, research shows that older adults are often assumed to lose desire, be less attractive, or even be inappropriate if they express sexuality, especially women. And it also highlights that these beliefs aren't just external. They often become internalized, shaping how people see themselves and what they believe is possible. So I hear that you haven't internalized this ageism due to your wonderful upbringing and the examples that you had. But have you encountered these beliefs about women and their sexuality as they get older from external sources throughout your journey at all? Or have you had friends that have experienced these beliefs about women and aging?
I have to say, I personally have not been exposed to this in a way that would assume, I should not discuss my sexuality or that I might be embarrassed to do so. In fact, my generation in the United States, the baby boomer, is the largest portion of the American population. And we have a lot of the money. And so as a result, a lot of products and publications grow into this space to find where the source of revenue is. Old women. And a lot of the magazines that I get online continue to talk about independence and sexual competence and comfort and whatever aids might be needed as the body does age and doesn't perform as comfortably as it might have. And so rather than be exposed to the concept that I should shut my mouth and not buy beautiful lingerie, instead I see articles about how to improve my sexual life if I would like to, what toys and tools are available to me. And so while I have no doubt ageism reveals itself in this way, especially towards older women, I don't really care because it hasn't affected me at all. And I don't seem to hear about it from either my friends or family or the media any longer. I think it is losing its fashion.
Well, I love that you haven't encountered it, which is really amazing. What about if there is a woman listening that has internalized these ideas about women and sexuality declining as they age? What would you say to her?
I would say that because of her age, she has navigated many of life's obstacles and tragedies and has enjoyed many wins and successes. And to draw upon all of that to make a personal choice about how to navigate what's next. And whether she wants to withdraw from a sexual life because it's her choice, that's totally fine. But if she feels compelled to make choices about her sexual behavior because it wouldn't be conventional, it wouldn't be accepted, she might be shunned in some way, give her my phone number. Or let me give her a copy of my book when it comes out, because she is someone who has already endured much of life in its good and its bad, and surely has the skills to continue going forward in whatever way she would like.
So when is your book coming out? Do you have a date yet?
It'll be about 3 months.
Oh, how exciting.
Yeah, sometime in midsummer. I expect to heat up my audiences in a new way.
Wonderful. So you've mentioned that you have this book, and you also have mentioned that you began writing erotica and sharing your body throughout your reclamation journey. Are you open to sharing a piece of your erotica with us today with a live reading, either the erotica that you wrote or maybe even a section of your book, if you have a particular paragraph you'd like to share to give people an idea of it? Does one of those stick out to you?
Gee, I would love to do that. If you'll give
Oh.
me a moment,
Yeah, sure.
I'll open it up.
So what do you have to share with us today?
I have a short story called Play a Game with Me. Want to play a game? If I'm sitting in the chair and you're standing in front of me with that beautiful cock daring me to keep my lips closed, then I'm going to swivel you around by pressing my hands against your hips. And then I'm going to back you up so you feel my breath all along your ass. Is that good? I'm going to use both my hands to gently push apart the cheeks of your beautiful ass. And then I'm going to slowly blow warm air onto you. You're going to tremble a bit because the room, especially in your naked state, it's just a bit cool. And my warm breath all along your ass will be a surprise. Oh, definitely a welcome one. I think then I'll take one hand and reach between your legs to pull you closer to my mouth. And with my hand on your erect cock, pressing against it to guide you right into my mouth, where you meet my wet tongue and lips. With my nose right up into your ass, I'll extend my tongue to find that soft little nutty gland, your prostate, that sometimes likes to hide, but which I know you enjoy so much. And so I think now you're captured against my face. My hand holding you firmly on your cock in front of you, and now beginning to stroke it from its moist tip to your hardened, waiting balls. My mouth and tongue breathing into and tasting your ass. I can see right where my mouth is going to find you and more. My finger is going to massage your prostate, while my right hand is doing exactly what you are begging for, caressing, stroking your cock. It's straining against my hands now, finding the warm moisture from its tip as my hand snakes down its length of its pulse shaft. Nothing stays still. My tongue explores your ass while my fingers are caressing and stroking your prostate. And that's my left hand. My right hand is feeling the warmth from your hardened round balls and then extending outward to your cock's tip where it's moist, and I use that to wet the length of you and stroke along it. Oh, I have always liked hair on a man's body. Just give me a moment here while my hands shift onto another realm of pleasure and we start a new game. And
Wow.
that's a short one.
Wonderful. Your lovers are very lucky. I can see that now.
Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you for that.
Okay, so that's some of your writing. I also asked you to bring along something today that's influenced your eroticism, such as a quote, book, or movie. Can you share with us what you brought along and how it influenced your erotic realm?
Yes, I thought about this quite a bit. And what came to mind is a movie that came out in the early 80s, I think, called The Big Chill. And this was a movie, it was a gathering of maybe 8 or 9 former college good friends who were getting together about 12 or 15 years later to celebrate the life of one of their number who had passed away. And during the course of the film, one of the women shares with another of the women that she would very much like to have a child. She is single with no prospects of a mate, yet she very much wants to have a child. And how would her friend feel about loaning this woman her husband for the night to impregnate her? And this movie came out more than 40 years ago. And I remember after leaving the film, I was with my boyfriend at the time, and I said to him, I could really understand her need, and I could understand the friend's willingness and the husband who also accepted it between good friends who loved each other. And my boyfriend said to me, "Oh, you would." And
Oh,
and his attitude was parochial. And I realized at the time mine was not, that I was open-minded and could see other choices that were not within the mainstream be perfectly appropriate for the parties involved. And I think that has stayed with me always. And I think it's part of why I took so easily and so happily to the FetLife playground and have found ultimately being with much younger men, while initially a shock, ultimately a tremendous compliment, easy to accept. I'm very open-minded. I'm much more willing to say yes than I am to say no. And I think, in fact, the only boundary I have is when it comes to pain. I don't want to either experience or inflict pain, physical pain on a partner. But beyond that, I'm open to toys and positions and even a third member of the team to play. So I'd say openness has been a hallmark for me, and it has stood me in good stead because I've been very fortunate to enjoy a tremendous amount of pleasure as a senior citizen.
we love that. We love pleasure here. And I'm so glad that you're able to experience a lot of it.
Yeah, me too.
You told us about your first kind of experience when you re-entered the sexual world. You've had quite a few experiences by the sounds of it over the last few years. I'm curious to hear from you about a peak erotic experience that you've had during that time. What comes to mind?
A peak experience?
Yeah.
Oh, the gentleman that I've spoken of twice, the one who dragged me into the bathroom to say, I want all of you, and who also introduced me to the pleasures of a behind. Um, he was a very lucky find. He has passed away, but he was at the time someone who made me recognize how much I had been missing, how much there was available, how much more I should require in future. He gave me the opportunity to explore and to discover ways of enjoying physical pleasure that I had not before. And it was more than just within the bedroom. He was a loving, thoughtful, fun man to be with in every way. And I was really blessed to spend nearly a year with him. And it set up a level of standard for my future partners that may not be so easy to match, but I'm sure I can find those who do or exceed. And this was a great find for me. It elevated me, it elevated my sense of personal value, and it elevated what I can look forward to when I find the right man.
What a beautiful experience. So that's from your past and what you've experienced so far. Is there anything that you're looking forward to in the future that you're particularly excited about?
I'm very much excited about the publication of this book. I think it's going to open a lot of eyes to possibilities. I think it's going to gently push me in a different business direction than I've been in before. And I look forward to it. I look forward to change. I have a very positive attitude that something great is going to happen every day. And if it's not great, it'll be a learning opportunity, or at the very least, a great meal and conversation with someone. And so I'm really excited about this book and its publication and the way it's going to be promoted to an audience who I hope will find that it opens them up to even more opportunities than they might have thought were available.
I love that positive perspective. So
Thank
that's
you.
more about your career and your profession. What about your eroticism? Do you have something you haven't ticked off that you want to tick off some point soon, or something kinky that you're looking forward to exploring?
Yes, I'm looking forward at some point to having two male partners. And I not yet. It had been discussed with this same very delicious gentleman I've mentioned. It had been discussed, and he had accepted it. And we were just at the point where we were going to explore. And we didn't have the opportunity to make that happen before he passed away. But it is something that I would like to play with.
Well, let's put it out there and let's see what happens.
Yes, gentlemen, you can find me on FetLife.
Oh, there it is. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with us that we haven't covered today? A particular topic about your book, desire, sexuality, aging, being a woman that you'd like to speak to a little bit more? Or do you think we've covered most of it?
I think we've done a marvelous job, and you've done a marvelous job in guiding the conversation so completely. I can only say that I'm very happy in my life. I think I'm lucky, but I've worked damn hard to be this lucky. And I hope that there is an audience that may not recognize there is an enormous world of possibilities in any realm somebody wants. And I hope they don't let convention or social frowns or family expectations prevent them from exploring whatever it is they would like to explore.
Very powerful statement. Thank you. So where can people find out more about your book and your work, Brookiana?
The book, Sex, Sensuality, and the Senior Woman, will be published in midsummer. I will be promoting it vigorously on all the social platforms where I have a presence. There will be a website devoted to this. I have already purchased the URL, and I will not be silent anywhere, and will look for those newscasters and journalists who feel I have something worthwhile for their readers or viewers.
Do you want to share your website at this point so people can look it up and subscribe to the newsletter? Or
the website for this book is not yet available, but if they would like to check me out elsewhere, my website is marketingthatrocks.com.
Ooh.
And that's where things will get started.
Wonderful. Okay, so if you had to describe your erotic self, thinking about the journey that you've been on and where you're at now, if you had to describe it in just one word and one word only, what would that word be and why?
Fun. It's been fun. It's been fun because it makes me smile a lot, because I grow, I learn more about myself, I learn more about the men who find me appealing. I get a tremendous amount of positive feedback, and I look forward to it constantly. The stories I write, some come from experience, some come from my brain, which is now very much attuned with a sexual, erotic life, which was held back for too long. But I find, as I mentioned earlier, it has not been curtailed or depleted in any way, that there's a lot of fun ahead. And I am delighted to participate with men whose company I enjoy and whose company I find fun and pleasurable.
Well, thank you, Brookiana, for sharing your story today. It's not just a personal story, it's a challenge to one of the deepest cultural myths that many of us carry about women, aging and desire. And you've shown that desire doesn't disappear, it gets rewritten, and sometimes it even gets stronger. So thank you for sharing your erotic realm with us.
Thank you for inviting me to do that.
Well, thank you again. I'm Em, and this is the Erotic Realm Podcast.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Erotic Realm Podcast. This is an independent podcast. If you want to see more episodes made, you can support it at psychologyofdesire.com by becoming a paid subscriber and entering the realm with many other supporters. The mission of the Erotic Realm is to humanize kink and desire in all of its forms. And we can't do that without you. Until the next time, stay perverted.